Alright everyone, so I've seen I Know What You Did Last Summer, and this is the reboot legacy sequel that is focusing on a whole new group of characters that caused a deadly car accident. They receive an anonymous letter for what they did last summer, and that causes the fisherman to make his return with the hook and bring in the legacy characters to have them fulfill as the survivors of the Southport massacre. And for what I'm about to say here, and this will be my non-spoiler review, if this works as a reboot, especially as a story in general for all the nostalgic elements and much more to discuss right here. And so, if you're new, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so I'm on any future videos, including movie reviews and much more. But now, let's talk about this movie. And now, when it comes to a horror movie like I Know What You Did Last Summer, especially with the slasher from 1997, and it was basically about a group of teens that caused a deadly car accident, and to keep it a secret rather than face the consequences, and then that they get a letter from an anonymous person that says, I know what you did last summer, especially with the fisherman that goes after the people and killing them one by one. Even though with that and Scream, that was the late 90s era of slashers, and then with its follow-up sequel, which I really did not like, and now with bringing this back into a reboot of focusing on a whole new group of characters that are not going through the same thing, and now this time coming up with a fresh, bold, new take on the franchise, especially with bringing a nostalgic element for what fans love about these movies. When I go into something like this, especially as this is labeled as a reboot by bringing legacy characters such as with Ray and Julie, played by Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt, that have survived through the Southport massacre involving the fisherman with a hook. And even for what I liked about it is that it's, especially with a whole new group of characters, generally feels fresh of the way that they wanted to tackle the storyline, and even with bringing in like certain callbacks, especially for what these survivors know from their past, that I can help these kids for what they're going through as they're being hunted by the fishermen. I don't know if I feel that much nostalgic, but I can definitely tell they did want to nail it, especially with bringing this a whole new generation by bringing the old actors that we love and to teach these new group of college kids to just hunt down who is doing this to them. For how this works as a reboot, and I kind of felt like it does for like a certain amount of time, but once it kind of gets going, I start to feel like something that's like sort of like a whimsical. Like it sort of felt like if something's not right, they're just trying to overdo it. But I definitely felt like from the performances to how the story plays out for trying to connect the pieces of like who is the killer, it was a definite throwback to what we love about slashers, because especially for what went on in that film from 1997, for how it plays into the charm and how it plays into nostalgic elements and story points into our main new group of characters for what they have to go through, and I can feel the sense of terror in them, and especially as like they tried to make everything look real. If this was even necessary to even call this a reboot, and from what I can say, with the performances coming from Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. as a step back into their characters from the old movie, and to fulfill their presence and to help out these kids in order to go after the fishermen, especially what kind of advice of what it tries to bring them with the sort of advice for what they've been through. I kind of felt like it was helpful throughout some parts, but especially with I loved Julie, that they brought her back, and I felt like with her sense of abilities of trying to teach these kids for what is right and what is wrong about trying to survive the Southport massacre. Wow, just with Ray, that they brought him back, especially from what we've known from him from the 1997 movie, but in terms of bringing that sort of like nostalgic element into this new modern era for it's sort of like a new version, like a bold take. Everything about it works out fine, and even though I was hooked for the way that they tried to recreate elements from what we know from the old movie, and they receive letters. I know what you did last summer, and then especially with the killing spree that starts to happen, and I feel like with the character development for how it develops as a story, and sometimes it does feel weak, but it sort of feels good. And now that for how they treat this new era in this reboot, it sort of felt like not so great to me, but I did like for what they were going with here. But at times I kind of felt like it can be predictable, and the fact, was this really necessary for me a little bit, but does it work as an entire story? Sometimes no, because especially things kind of felt like watered down and sometimes flat. But I gotta admire the kills were pretty good, and even though I do gotta admit for what they were approaching and trying to touch on nostalgia, but sometimes it is just not needed, especially to bring this film back for this specific movie. But some of the performances, it did feel a little weird, but by the time the third act rolls around, especially for who they reveal who the killer is, and it was sort of an unexpected move, and I did not expect for them to do that, but trust me, once you see the movie, you'll thank me later. And I just definitely think that like things could have gone better once they ended the movie. If you think about it, when they rebooted Scream and they brought in a whole new group of characters, they brought back legacy actors like Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox, yeah, I mean, like, that was completely unnecessary. But for it to do with I Know What You Did Last Summer, and even though I like the old slasher movie, but in terms of like what's to bring in for why was this necessary for the modern era for a horror film like this. And you know, I enjoyed the kills and that went down, and so much. Wow, they brought in a whole new creative take on the kills, and I thought they felt good. But you know, it works in some ways as part of the script and for how it evolves around our characters, for how they are developed. By the end, in general, it is turned out to be a reboot, a legacy sequel that was fun, but sometimes just everything else like just kind of felt off. It just kind of felt flat. But hey, it's a good feeling to me. And there's also a mid-credit scene that kind of teases like something else, probably like a sequel or something like that, and I am looking forward to what they have in store. But just to summarize the entire movie, I liked it. I thought the nostalgic element for what to bring back about Southport, and especially with these legacy characters. But with everything else, it was just not needed. And there is good slasher fun to be had, and there is tons to enjoy about this movie, and I think it was good. But on the other parts, it just kind of felt not that new to me, but it kind of plays out just any old reboot can give. And so that's going to do it for this video. Just let me know in the comments down below, and if you've seen I Know What You Did Last Summer, and give me a rating between 1 out of 10. I'm curious to hear your opinion. 1 out of 10, 10 being the highest. Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to notifications about future videos. Also follow all my social medias, all linked down below. And with that, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.